all Shardvixen here, and today is December 17th. It's a Saturday, 2016. Since last vlog, I was trying to go a whole year ahead. That'll be interesting, won't it? So today my topic is Logan, and that would be aka Wolverine, aka James Howlett, aka Patch. There's probably some other names there too, but when I first came across Logan, that's what he was called, Wolverine or Logan. So I was born in 1965, and around the age of 5 or 6, before that, I had very young aunts and uncles, and they all read comic books. Now, their favorite comic books, of course, were the DC comic books, but Marvel was starting to become really popular. I mean, there were people that read it then too, but it really started to become more popular in the 70s. And my aunts and my one uncle, who was at the time probably about 12 years old or so, started reading Spider-Man. And so I started to read Spider-Man as well. And there was something about Spider-Man that I really, really liked. And I couldn't tell you now, I don't really remember, but it was a character that was easy to find in the flea markets that we went to when I was a kid. So you could buy comic books for $1. Old comic books, you know, a couple of years old, whatever. You could get some pretty good finds. So I was going along that way. I'd take my allowance money. Every Saturday we'd go out to the auction in the flea market, and I would cruise through the stalls. There was a couple of really stalls that were there every Saturday that sold comic books. And I was allowed to go through the comic books. And some of the comic books I collected was Red Sonja, Conan, and Spider-Man. So I came across this Spider-Man title that was old when I came across it. I mean, well, not really old, but older than me. And it was called Marvel Team Up Spider-Man. Okay, so let's see if I can turn it so that glare doesn't hit it. And this is, I think, one of the first ones that I got. And I kind of read through it, and I thought, oh, this is really cool, because it would always show different characters in Marvel, ones I didn't read and didn't know nothing about. So I really liked that. And as you can't see, but the cost of this comic book brand new was 40 cents. I got them, like I said. So like 25 cents each, 5 for $1. I said 4 for $1, but it was really 5 for $1. If you bought 5 of them, you got them for $1. And so this particular one, is 1979. And like I said, so I was collecting Spider-Man, so I started picking this one up. And I started buying back issues, but they were also, at the time, doing new issues. And so I discovered a comic book store in the Old Town, and decided that I would start going there to buy brand new comic books when I had money, which wasn't always. I had to collect money. So as I went through grade school, and which made me an oddball, because I couldn't find other girls that liked to read comic books, and the boys, of course, read comic books, but then that made me the oddball, and I was already an oddball, so on top of that, I was a double oddball, so I was a double oddball, you know, crazy, 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 as was I. And so I would go through, and I'd read Spider-Man, and I kind of had a feel Spider-Man was like the superhero, you know, like he was a hero. He did the same thing as Superman did. He changed his clothes. He was quiet. He wasn't as dark as Batman. He was the good, wholesome kind of hero. So one day, I'm in there talking to the cashier guy. I knew quite a few of them at the comic book store. And he's all like, so have you ever tried this comic? Because he knew I was a Spider-Man fan. And he pulled out this one, which I was collecting. And I was like, woohoo, I'm collecting that. And he's like, well, this is brand new. And it was Spider-Man and Wolverine. And I was all like, Wolverine? That's a pretty cool looking character. Man, he's got like muscles and those claws. What's up with that? And so I read the comic book, which, you know, is, you know, not a spectacular story for Wolverine. But it's an interesting one, because they bring the two of them together. And the whole concept of this grouchy old person, not old, but this grouchy guy who was kind of, you know, into the wildlife, and he was all about, you know, you just jump in the middle of it and go. Look back later. You know, he had a honor, and he had these weird concepts, which weren't weird, I guess, but, and they weren't old. They were just a do-or-die kind of concept. Spider-Man wasn't like that. Spider-Man had a whole different idea. His was all about a hero had the set thing, and that was a hero. Wolverine was a hero, but he was more like a bad guy too. And I was like, this is interesting. I really like this concept, you know. I was a bit naive in some ways as a kid, and then in other ways, not so much. So I decided I wanted to start buying this comic book. And I kind of switched over. There was this slow, gradual, discontinuous Spider-Man. And I started reading Wolverine, which at the time, the only way you could get him was in X-Men. But the same year that the Marvel comic team-up came out with Spider-Man and Wolverine, it was decided that he was a popular enough character that he came out with his own miniseries. And at that time, during the early 80s, Marvel did a lot of these limited series. So you get like anywhere from 2 to 5, 6 comic books about some story or character. And I saw this one, I was like, oh, that's awesome. So that was really great, because I was only reading Wolverine in the X-Men, and I started to collect them, and I was going through and buying back issues as well, as far back as I could go before they became really expensive. Because, as you know, they started to become collectibles. Everybody wanted comic books. Comic books in the 80s and the 90s became kind of an investment, and people were buying these huge comic books all over the place. And so I have this one and the 4 that came with it. And then after that came another series with Kitty Pryde and Wolverine, and about that one. And so I told you more about Wolverine. And then in the X-Men, the crossover to that was that they started to go over to Japan. I advise you, if you're interested in the history of comic books, especially Marvel comic books, the X-Men stuff, I would go check out Comic Book Girl 19. She has the history of X-Men, and that would probably be a good place to go. I don't really know if she talks much about Wolverine, so I'm not trying to overlap it. And this really isn't a vlog about Wolverine. It's more of a vlog about me, because Wolverine to me represented my knight in shining armor that as a child I was brought up on. Wolverine, Logan, is so wrapped up in who I am growing up and my ideas of the opposite sex for males. And what I thought that a good man would be, because I didn't have that representation at home. I didn't know how males were supposed to treat females, because the stuff that I saw in one aspect was not very good, and then in my grandparents was very devoting, but kind of singular devoting, like it was either them and not the kids, or it was the kids and not them. And so I didn't have this idea of what my knight in shining armor should be like. And when I was in my teens, Wolverine showed up, and that became my ideal fantasy of what a man should be like. Not like going around killing people, or chopping them up, but willing to stand up for what that person believed in, willing to protect innocent people, willing to tell people that they were doing something wrong and not really wanting to be part of the crowd. That was really important to me at that time period, because I suffered from bullyism and my peers being mean to me and being an outcast and not really knowing how to fit in. And then when I became sexual upon puberty, I found that there was a certain power to that, but also there was, like anything, you know, as quoting Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. Anytime you have power over other people, there's a responsibility of how you treat those people. And I wasn't a very nice person because I came out of a time period and things where I wasn't treated very nice. My mother's whole goal for me was to be this great housekeeper, be this great cook, and go to a school. She wanted me to go to college, but she wanted me to go to college with the idea that I would marry somebody who could provide for me and my children really great. So go someplace where there are a lot of doctors or a lot of stuff. I wanted to go to UCLA. I wanted to be a director. I wanted to make cartoons, which is kind of why I'm in animation right now. Because that's what I wanted to do. And I got very into the NOW, National Organization of Women. I got into the idea that as a female, I could do what I wanted. And Wolverine kind of embodied that. He was very supportive to his female counterparts. He was very, but while he was being very supportive and while he was helping them out, he was also very protective and very caring and very much wanting to be the person in their lives to take care of them. But he wasn't going to like overshadow who they were. And that was my ideal of what a man should be like. That's what people should be like. We should support each other, and we should love each other, and we should care about each other, and we should take care of each other and help each other when we, need help, and teach each other how to fly and be free and follow our dreams and things like that I didn't get at home. And that's what that comic book represented to me. And as I got older, and then I had my first child, and then about 13 years later, I had my second child. So like I said, I have Bobby Joe the Wizard. He's 12, 13 years old. And then I have She Who Shall Not Be Named. She's 25. And they knew my love for Wolverine, so they started buying me collectibles. And one of my vlogs is going to be about collecting, because I collect a lot of stuff. I'm not quite a hoarder, though I'm on the verge of a hoarder. But some of the stuff I collect is Wolverine. And so in the 90s, I started collecting Wolverine figures. Like these. This is a newer one. This is so cute. And then a year ago, we took all the ones I had and I shipped them out to people I knew that liked them. And I opened them all for my grandson, Boo Boy, and my son, who had, interesting enough, as a baby, opened quite a few of them as well. And then Wolverine had become very popular, as some of you might know. And they changed his backstory, and they gave him a history, and they kind of filled in all the gaps. So he wasn't the man of mystery anymore. He's kind of that hero that feels like he's unlovable, but you just want to love him kind of thing. But then they started doing other weird stuff with him, and as an art form, I don't have a problem with that. I don't. It's in art, you get to morph and modify and change things as you want. But so my kids bought me this one, and this is the complete history of the time of Logan, Wolverine. That's how I always see him. But when you think about being born in the 60s and growing up in the 70s and change in society and stuff, the X-Men was a really good storyline, and so was Wolverine, about the world changing around us. And the world's still changing. It will always change. And they did Old Man Logan. He got old, and then they killed him off. And that was kind of sad. It made me feel the same way as when NCO died in Assassin's Creed little story at the end of 3. Because it was like, I wanted the character to keep existing with me until I died. I wanted Wolverine to always be there in that other realm. And he is. I mean, in some aspect, he still is. But he became more like a character, like reading history. Alright, so that's the end of this vlog. And I will catch you all on the flip side. Ciao.